What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Uberkooledgarage. On this week's episode, we're going to dive into Ryan's car, continuing to finish all of the little bits and pieces. Definitely some struggles this week with getting everything situated and all of that, finding out more problems with the car that I don't know if I just missed or what, but a couple problems. We're gonna end up fixing those, getting everything situated, and start getting this car really close to firing up, running, and hopefully driving. So let's go ahead and hop into this episode. I wanted to thank you guys so much for your support, and I hope you guys enjoy. Got that leaky valve cover off of there. So the engine is clean, dirty, but clean. It, to me, looks like they probably didn't do oil changes as often as they should have, but it's all kind of surface scum. So all of it will come off. I think it just needs a couple oil flushes through it. Throw some new oil in it, run it up to operating temperature, drain the oil, put some fresh stuff in. Do that 3 or 4 times, and the motor should clean itself out pretty darn good. So the oil itself, got that out, is pretty dark, but it is clean. There's no debris in it or anything like that. The stuff that you just saw in there is stuff that came off of the valve cover when I pulled that off. So they had some dried on silicone around the edges, so I'll probably end up doing a little bit of silicone when I put it back in, especially in these crevices here and where the half moons go. Put a little dab of silicone in there to keep those. The spark plugs, got those out, 1, 3, and 5. Look like they have, of course it's not going to focus. It looks like they have a tiny bit of carbon buildup on them and just a little tiny bit of oil on the threads. Cylinders 2, 4, and 6 all look nice and clean. So I'm almost wondering if there's might be something going on with the PVC system that would get those a little bit carbon up. So it's really hard to see. Of course, my phone will not focus. So they're clean. They just got a tiny bit of carbon buildup in them. So I'll probably use these spark plugs to fire it up first. That way it'll kind of clear anything out of all of those cylinders, and then after that we can change the spark plugs if Ryan wants to. Same thing with the oil flush. That way you get this motor cleaned up and running pretty darn good. So I need to pull the crank pulley, pull the front cover. We'll check the timing chain, and then I will reseal the entire front cover, put that back on. And I think all of the oil leaks should be fixed. I'm going to wipe down the underside of this underside of the motor before startup, and then after startup we'll double check and see if there's any oil coming out anywhere. Still waiting on a couple pieces of the radiator stuff to come in. That way we can finish that off. And then we should be looking pretty darn close to first startup. While the paint's drying on the shift linkage, went ahead and finished up the brake and clutch line. So got them all nice and neat and tidy. Got them all zip tied up so they follow all the way up front. They go under the gas pedal like they do on a stock car. Then they go up and into the front firewall. So both the reservoirs are underneath. So what I end up doing is getting like a transmission fluid pump and sliding that into the brake fluid and use that to pump fluid up in there. So you can see I got fluid in both of those. So we'll go ahead and bleed the clutch and the brake, and we should knock that off the list. The only other thing left is I have to weld up this brake tab right here. So those are the last two things on the brake list, and then the brakes are done. So let's go ahead and knock those off the list. I had a leak in the brake line, so got frustrated with that, so I decided to take a break for a second on the brakes and bleed the clutch. So the clutch system is another really odd, weird one. So started bleeding it, noticed that the pedal was starting to get some feel, and then came back here and realized that there's a hole in the clutch forks. There is not supposed to be a hole here. So the actual slave cylinder itself fits right in. So I looked back here and realized that the pin was almost all the way out of the actual cylinder and all the way through the hole in the back of this. So instead of pulling the motor, taking the clutch off, taking the forks off and all of that, and then trying to source another clutch fork, which they're pretty expensive, I think what I might end up doing is just taking a 1/8 inch plate and welding it in here so then it's flush against this, and then I'll tape everything off and paint it. That way the actual cylinder doesn't push all the way through. If Ryan wants to change it later on down the line, he can, but I think this is a fast, easy, good solution that's not going to harm anything, and it's the only difference is it's just going to have a plate here instead of a big old huge gaping hole. So I think that's going to be the best bet, and then after that we should have a clutch. I got that plate welded in there, so I actually found a 3/16 piece of steel that fit in there perfect. So went ahead and welded that in. You saw me spray it, that way it doesn't rust at all, so that's gonna work out great. Unfortunately, on the pedal side of things, I misjudged the height on the weld-in bracket there on the pedal. So with it being up so high, you don't get as much leverage on the actual pedal. So it's really, really, really stiff. So I'm gonna have to cut that off and lower it almost down to the base, or as low as I can get it. And that should definitely help out the situation. So we'll go ahead and cut that off here in a sec. But since I'm in the car, we are going to go ahead and install the shift linkage. So this turned out absolutely awesome. Went ahead and welded a bolt on that side. That way you don't have to use 2 wrenches to tighten it in. You can just tighten it in. Also welded a bolt on the underside. That way you can through bolt all the way through, and that will actually run through the linkage here and bolt all the way through that. And then you also saw me weld in an adjuster, so you should be able to adjust it in and out depending on where the actual shift lever wants to be. So I'm going to go ahead and vacuum up all of the metal shavings everywhere, and then we'll go ahead and bolt this in. So another thing that I have to do that I noticed is I'm going to have to cut this here. So I started to cut it and broke a Sawzall bit. So I'm going to have to cut that out with the grinder. And that should be good. And then we'll make fill panels to fill all that stuff. But for now, let's go ahead and install the shift linkage and get everything all cleaned up. So that's what the shift linkage looks like all put in. It looks absolutely awesome. and it works great. So I got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and reverse. So seems like I got all the gears. The shifter is a stock shifter, so it's pretty floppy, but seems like got all the gears, so I can go ahead and put the cover back over this, get it all screwed in, and then let's go ahead and hop in the clutch pedal. That way we can actually shift gears. I got the shift linkage cover on there. I had to put a tiny indent right here, right in this section here, to clear the bolt that bolts the shift linkage down to the transmission, so nothing rubs, and it actually turned out pretty darn good. So still need to cut that and make a cover and cap some holes, all of that stuff. But you can see the seat is in there. Went ahead and tried to test out the clutch, and the clutch pedal bent almost in half. So I'm gonna have to do some serious modifications to that, unfortunately. I did go ahead and bleed the rest of the brake system and bled out the clutch system. So all of that seems to be working okay. Another thing that I'm gonna do while I'm fixing the clutch pedal is extend the arm on the throttle cable. It's not quite getting full throttle all the way in, so I'll put a little extension on that to give it a little bit more leverage and a little bit more swing. That way we get full pedal on the actual throttle body itself. Right now it's probably 90 to 95% throttle when you push the throttle pedal all the way to the floor. So we'll go ahead and rip out the pedal assembly and start doing some modifications. Unfortunately, the cooling parts have not came yet, so we'll probably end up hopping into that in the next video. So all these little things take the most time, but they're all starting to come along. Alright guys, so that's all I have for you on this week's episode. The clutch pedal really got me kind of down. My brain's kind of been working and thinking of ways that I can make it work. I'm probably gonna have to adjust a couple things, maybe plate a couple things, and we'll probably get into that the next episode. I'll kind of explain my thought process on it and what I'm gonna do to fix it. We got one of the 2 oil leaks fixed, which is awesome. I have to make a tool to pull off the crank pulley. That way we can pull that front cover and reseal that in, check the timing chain, all of that stuff. Everything else on the car is looking good. I was really hoping to get all of the cooling parts for this video. Unfortunately, I didn't get 2 of the last fittings. So I'm hoping they come within the next day or 2, and we'll put it in the next episode. That way we can finish the cooling system, be 100% done. We have brakes now. After we fix the pedal, we'll have a clutch. We have a shift linkage, which is awesome. So we're getting really, really, really close. Next major thing, engine-wise, will be the exhaust system. Ryan said our parts from Send Cut Send are estimated to ship within the next day or two. So hopefully we get those in. That way we can do the alternator and start building out the exhaust system. So a lot of cool stuff coming in the future, as well as first startup and possibly first drive. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for supporting. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, guys.